Yeah, throughout every Zoom meeting, by the
Yeah,
way, it's like across the world. It's an update
yeah.
on Zoom.
Ariel told me that it can't be turned off. Which,
Yeah, I heard that.
which I would believe. Yeah,
I
yeah,
think it's a privacy thing.
yeah. No, I mean, definitely it is. That's why I definitely think that they just they
Did
got
you
sued.
mention
Yeah.
it through our face off? Because I think if there's a chance that can be taken off, it can only be through an
Yeah,
app.
he did send me a thing earlier about it, but I just didn't follow up with him. Yeah. Okay, so I mentioned in the chat that we were going to do meforshim today, but a lot of the meforshim connected to the next pasuk. So I want to learn the next pasuk on its own because I wouldn't have connected them. But let's learn it on its own, and then maybe tomorrow we'll do meforshim on both of them. This is 20, pair 20 pasuk 9. Mi yomar zikiti libi taharti mechatasi.
Who says my heart is my merit?
Okay, so this is where we have Mitzvah ציון, who says zichisi is milashon zach v'naki. So it's a verb. So not zuhusi, but zachisi, meaning no. Yeah.
Clarified myself. Or like,
Yeah, clarified myself, or rendered myself. Yeah, zach v'yashar, or rendered myself innocent.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So, who says that my heart will clarify me?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Something like that. Yeah, yeah.
And purify me from my faith.
Yeah.
From my sin.
Yeah. Okay, good. I would translate it for zikisi as who. So who says I have? I mean, zach is a what do you call it? A synonym for tahara. So there might be a what do you call it? Like a nuance, but for let's just say who says I have we'll say cleansed my heart. I have purified, and I think you have to put in the word myself, or I've become pure. I've become purified. How do you say it?
I've become purified. Yeah.
Okay.
I was reading
my
this.
sin.
My heart is like cleansing me, and my heart is purifying me.
So that is possible, but it's also no, it's not possible.
Okay.
You know why?
Why?
Because libi means my heart, and zikisi means I purified myself or I cleansed myself. So you would say miyomar. I don't know how to say it. But you'd say you'd have to say zikisi not in first person. It would have to be in third person to me. I'm just trying to think how that would be. You know what I'm saying? Like zikisi means what was it?
is it just like a pot off under the cup, like you got coffee?
My knowledge. All I know is that you can't say it that way. Yeah. Okay. So then let's see. Sadigon says, "Mi is mi ze hayachol lomar." Who is the person who can say, "Zichisi libi v'taharti michatasi"? Who is the person who can say, "I have"? Who is able to say, "I have purified my heart and I've cleansed my heart and I've purified from my fate." So I think. So what's the subtle nuance that he's doing there?
Not who is saying it, but who's able to say it.
Yeah, exactly. Hold on a second. I just have to say this is a different document. Yeah, right. Because the straight up pasuk just says who will say, right? So he's saying who's capable of saying.
Right.
Okay, and then Targum says man diyemar. Oh, that's interesting. I just didn't even realize this when I read the first time. Man diyemar zakai hu libi v'idach yes mechovti. So you catch the subtle.
One who says.
Yeah, the one who says, my heart is clean and I've been purified of my sin. So I don't know. That's not a full sentence.
Where are you reading that from?
The Targum Ksuvim, the Dalid. Oh, sorry. Yeah, the Dalid. Man de Yemar. Is he there? Top left. Yeah, man de Yemar. Yeah, so he adds in the Dalid, the one who says. So I don't know if he's somehow connecting to the last one. I just don't know what to make of that. Okay, then we got Article says, who can say I have cleansed my heart? I have purified myself from my sin. Okay, so they add in the word myself. Oh, that's fine. Living Knox says, who can say I have purified my heart? I am purged of my sin. I don't think purging is a good word for tahara.
Yeah, a little weird.
Yeah, it's a little weird. Alter says, who can say I declared my heart pure? I am clean of my offense. Okay, Article is the best of those. Okay, fine.
What's our current translation?
So I think we can stick with our translation. Who said, or let's see, who can, let's say who will / can say, all right, because that's like preserves both possibilities. I have cleansed my heart. I have become purified of my sin.
Purging kind of, oh, purified. I was gonna say purging makes it sound like it was there and now it's been fulfilled.
Right. So the
But
only,
purified also.
yeah. I think the difference between purging and purifying is purging only means getting rid of the bad. Like, in other words, like when you use the word purge, it just means to get rid of the bad, and it's not making a state about, or it's not making a statement about the state that you end up in. Whereas tahara is getting rid of the bad to put you into a state of being tahor, you know. So that's why I don't like purged.
Mhm.
Yeah. Like biar tahara mikir baka, like purge the evil from your midst, does not lead to a state of tahara. Like that's just, you're just talking about getting rid of the bad.
Mhm.
And by the way, not that we should be thinking about this now, but I think that's why they connected to the previous one, because the previous one was about getting rid of the bad.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to make a Mishlei point, a Mishlei methodology point. Is it relevant now? Hold on just a second. Oh, yeah, I just want to make this point before it slips my mind. So I was talking with Levi, with my chavrusa Levi about this, and he said that one of the good things about Mishlei, in terms of dealing, we were talking about, this is in the context of talking about IFS, but it was just talking about psychology in general. And he said one of the good things about Mishlei is so much of our own stress and anxiety that we have is about our own internal state. And Mishlei, and maybe this podcast is going to go against it, but Mishlei puts the primary emphasis on actions. And like, it doesn't matter like why you're motivated by something or what you're doing. It's just, if you do this action, then you will get this result. And if you don't do this action, you'll get this consequence. And there's a certain freeing of having a lot of anxiety, getting caught up in your own internal world. Not that like you can go through life like not being in your internal world, but like it's so easy to just get caught up in like having the right feelings or the right motivations and stuff. And Mishlei is primarily emphasizing, like, you know, what was the saying that I said in the name of Rafi, that if that God designed the world in a way where if you mix together the flour and the water and the eggs, then cakes will pop out. You know, like that has nothing to do with your emotions. It's just you do the right actions and you will get these results. You know, so there's a certain freeing of the mind and freedom from stress that comes from the fact that you know, from the emphasis that and you can always just go into it. Now you can't always do this, but like, you know, Mishlei gives you a mode to go into where you are focused on actions and interfacing with the external world, as opposed to getting too caught up in your inner feelings.
And I don't think you're saying it does that absolutely. Like it definitely still, like there are certain things.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But that's a general thing.
Yeah, that's the emphasis.
Right.
Meaning it's not a middos-based approach,
Right.
either. Like I think that's one of the downfalls of I don't mean to diss Pirkei Avos, but like it's one of the downsides of middos-based approaches to, it's gonna sound funny, middos-based approaches to character refinement.
Right.
You know, like when you focus on cultivating specific middos,
Right.
you know, that Mishlei, like then you can easily get caught up in, do I have this midah? Do I not have this midah? Like what's, you know, Mishlei like gets you good middos, but through focusing on decision making, on actions, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why, you know, I would say for someone who's like aspiring to become a chassid.
Yeah. Right. You've got the middos.
Right.
Yeah.
It's really just giving you like the end goal. It's not giving you like a practical formula.
Right.
For, like,
That's also true.
Apply and integrate ways to achieve the end goal.
Yeah.
Like it's more just giving you the picture
Right,
of what
right.
the end goal is.
Just tying this into Ram Machias, the mitzvah of, for the mitzvah of Elach Midrachav, we said like the chiyuv is to do actions that correspond to the proper day.
Right.
Not that, and supposed to have
Practically, that's what the mitzvah is. Because conceptually, the mitzvah is to get the deal.
Yeah.
That's what we got from that Rambam, the
Yeah.
nine Shoresh.
Yeah, but like you're not being told as an imperative, like the imperative is not change your change your psychology.
Yeah.
Because like,
So I actually do think that this also is sort of saying the point.
Okay.
Because it's basically saying,
Oh yeah.
like you might have this like thought that like, oh, I have to be perfect first before I can start doing Mishlei things.
Uh-huh.
and basically saying like no one ever gets to that point where they're
Right.
totally, free of sin and
Yeah.
totally, like, like
Yeah.
clean.
Okay, I hear.
You know?
Yeah.
So like, there's like, like I guess you could have a lot of like guilt maybe, or like whatever, or just like be caught up in like trying to perfect yourself. Or
Yeah.
whatever. And it's basically saying like, put that aside.
Yeah.
Like, no one actually achieves that fully.
Right. Okay. So I created a stumbling block unintentionally because we didn't ask any questions yet. So that's on me. So let's. Do you want to comment on
I
the
was
previous
gonna
thing?
ask if you have a Mishlei mode that you go into, or is it just does it affect your decision making? I mean,
I think generally it affects my decision making without going into a mode, but I do think that like that there at times when I am in conflict about something, then I can consciously switch into Mishlei mode, and then that can actually help. In fact, there's a whole method of this is on the old blog, so I don't think you know about this. You haven't read anything called the Ken method of making decisions?
I have not.
So Ken and I one time sat down. This was in like 2005 or 2006. We sat down and said, we take Mishlei's whole approach and boil it down into a step-by-step decision-making process. Okay, so this is the thing that I use. Let's see if I can remember it. It was 5 steps. Let's see if I can get it. Let me. I'd rather just see if I can find where I wrote it. I don't even know. It might be on the old blog, which is completely gone. But Ken method. Yes, how to make decisions. The Ken method. Okay, so 5 steps. Okay, step 1: choose and define a point of conflict. Okay, and conflict means when something is happening that you don't want, or when something is happening that you don't want to is going to happen that you don't want to happen. Okay, so that's step 1. All right, no judgment as to whether you should or shouldn't choose a point of conflict. Like it could be that you're crazy and like that this is an unrealistic thing, but just choose a point of conflict. Okay, step 2: identify the options. Oh, and I should mention, by the way, that this method is, in order for it to work, you have to do each step on its own. Okay, the whole greatness of this method is that people do this, but they mix all the steps together. Okay, so step 2 is identify the options. Don't think about pros and cons. Don't think about possible or impossible. Just what are the options?
Wait, if it's impossible, how's it an option?
Don't think about that. Just think about what would be a way to bring this about. And I think, let's see, when was this? Okay, so I wrote this in 2007, so it's not like eternity ago. I mean,
It's not on your current blog.
it's not my current blog, yeah. So I think I gave examples of this. Hold on just a second here. Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah, so I said this is a valid tangent to go into, by the way. I think this is useful, so we're going to go into it. So here's the situation. Oh, so here's my the case was this is the case in yeshiva. It's not like scandals or anything, but so the situation is my friend opens the window, which cools the room to an uncomfortable temperature. Okay.
Like the dorm room?
No, this was is in the basement. This used to happen. Okay, like, and you know, someone liked the window open, and it like just made everything cold, and like people were very annoyed by it. You know, so step 1: choosing to find the point of conflict. I am cold, and my desire is to not be cold. Okay. Step 2: identify the options. How can I make it so that I am not cold? Okay. So 4 options: adjust my own temperature, adjust the room's temperature, adjust my friend's temperature, or tolerate the coldness.
Yeah.
Okay, those are the 4. All right.
Why not like leave the room, for example?
That would be a way of adjusting my own temperature. So this is okay. This is a good point though. So I'm calling these. I haven't read this in a while. So apparently I call these the primary options. Okay, and then you can break this down further. The first option, which is adjust my own temperature, could be executed in 3 ways. I could either change into warmer clothing, close the window, move further away from the window, or leave the room. Okay. Second option, which was to adjust the room's temperature, could also be executed in several ways. I could persuade my friend to close the window myself, or turn up the heat. Okay. Third option, adjust my friend's.
Persuade a third party to close the window.
Yes, that's also. Oh, I mentioned these methods of execution can be subdivided. Okay. For instance, option 2A can be executed in 3 ways. What was it? Yeah, right, yeah. Kalam. I could either ask him to close the window, suggest to him that he close the window, order him to close the window, or bring about another reason for him to close the window. For example, set off a stink bomb outside. Perhaps not the best option, but at this point we aren't performing a cost benefit analysis. These two could be further subdivided. I could either ask him in a friendly tone or unfriendly tone. I could either suggest the idea subtly or explicitly, use someone else, so on, so these are the options. Third option could be executed in two ways, which is, again, is third option is adjust my friend's temperature. I could ask my friend to change his clothing. This is one of the examples, is he would be wearing a sweater and then open the window. So I could ask him, sure, take off your sweater, all the rage is coming back. Or I could ask him to leave the room. And then fourth option, and again, this is not a exhaustive thing, despite how it looks. Fourth is tolerate coldness. Fourth option is what I call the null option. In every situation of conflict, there is always the option of choosing to remain with the conflict. It is important to note this option and to recognize it for what it is. It's very easy to be emotionally blinded to this option. For example, you say, me choose to suffer? Never. But sometimes it's the best choice. Okay, so this is in the steps. This is identify the options. Okay, 3 is assess the consequences, and this is a key thing. You don't do a weighing of the consequences. You just map out all the consequences. So, for example, if I, tell him to close the window, one of the consequences is that he argues against me and we get into a fight about it. Or let's say whatever, you just identify all of the consequences. Then you do a cost benefit analysis, which is a subjective process where after you've laid out all the options, then you weigh them. And the reason why these 3 middle steps have to be separated is because what happens is people will prematurely rule out options because of how they weigh them, So that's why you have to just see what are the options. If I were planning this for someone else, I can see it from an objective standpoint, and then and just dispassionately tell them what all the options are, and then talk about all the consequences. So you have to do that with yourself. And the problem is people shut out options offhand because they think they're not possible, or because they do the weighing while they're coming up with the options, Yeah.
Give a practical example
Yeah.
of that. So I'm watching Chowder recently,
Yeah.
and at some point I paused the show, and I was thinking what would I do if I was in that situation?
Yeah.
And I considered a few options, and immediately I started conflating them, and I realized I was doing it. I was like, well, I could do that. I'm like, no, that would definitely result in death.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, wait, but let me just leave it on the table. Maybe maybe that's the best way to die.
Yeah.
And all the options.
Right.
Death.
Yeah. There's a great example, which I don't remember, and apparently I didn't write this down in here. It's a great example. All right, I'm going to make it up. I'm going to make up the details, but it was some example where this guy was working for a dictator, and this is actually a Seinfeld, but this didn't come from Seinfeld. Okay, but and there's something where the dictator set up this thing where the guy was going to be he basically accused the guy of this horrendous crime, and then basically effectively sentenced him to death or something like that, And it was one of these things where the dictator was such a dictator that no one would really question what he did. So the guy was like, what are my options? I could flee. I could try to flee the country. I could try to pull out all these bureaucratic software, to manipulate it. I could beg, And then the only other the option that he ended up going with was go into work and just pretend nothing happens, And he did it. And what had happened was this dictator, I guess, kind of an officer type thing, where in a fit of rage, he had just did what the puzzle said yesterday of just wanted to just use edict to get rid of the problem, and the emotion had passed, and the dictator valued this guy as a worker, so the dictator just undid the thing, And if you had thought to yourself oh, I should just go into work and pretend nothing happened, that's just. But if you're, it's like suicide. But if you are listing the options and the other options aren't as good, and then you're well, this one seems to be the most reasonable, then you should just do it. And then the 5th of the 5 steps, which is a very important one, and this is the hardest to do. Okay, make a decision and stick with it.
The fourth one was
Fourth one was do the cost benefit analysis. Yeah, so I'll say them again. Choose and define a point of conflict, identify the options, assess the consequences, perform a cost benefit analysis, and then make a decision and act on it. And don't change the decision unless the facts change or unless you realize a specific mistake you made. And this is the big thing, is that people make decisions and then they back out of them because they get scared or because it doesn't feel right, or But if the key thing is don't change you went through the process, so unless you know a specific mistake, or unless you like the factors change, then don't back out, you know? So to answer your question, this is translating like Mishleic thinking into a consciously deliberate mode of decision making, which I obviously don't do every time it gets cold when someone opens the window. But like, I'll tell you the times that it's helped is like when there is a tremendous conflict and I feel very influenced by the heat of the moment or the emotions or the fears blended. What?
That's the heat of the moment.
Oh, yeah. Then this is a very good way of like Mishleically removing myself from the situation to like assess it objectively. Yeah.
Even if you don't like consciously do that with each step, you know,
Yeah.
divided, subdivided,
Yeah.
subdivided.
Yeah.
Like you could just generally like incorporate that way of thinking into your
Yes.
just natural mode.
Yeah.
So you're sort of doing it most of the time.
Yeah. And I think that Mishlei does force us to do this when we analyze the psukim, because we are identifying, well, what is the difference between what the chacham does and what the fool does, you know, and like what is the consequence, you know, and then does it matter, you know, like we're weighing those, but we're doing it in the safety of the base midrash and in the safety of this is not about me right now. Like I'm just examining like abstract archetypes, and then eventually that affects your thinking. Yeah.
Which step do you think Mishlei focuses on the most?
I think it focuses most on steps 2 and 3, which is identifying the options. Because most psukim are going to have a good decision and a bad decision, and then the consequences or the benefits. Mishlei does not really weigh things for you because it can't. And then I think it does train you in step 1, which is to identify a point of conflict, but it doesn't do that explicitly. Like it's just every conflict is a different decision-making scenario where there is a conflict that the chacham and the fool are both faced with, and then, but the thing Mishlei explicitly does is identifying what decision lies before you, and then what are the consequences and benefits. Yeah, still holds up. I think the Ken method still holds up. Yeah, yeah.
I'm thinking about this in light of another decision-making framework that I know of.
In light of, because the window, no.
In the book Decisive, it talks about
Got to buy that book.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So Lisa, another decision-making framework.
Yeah.
There's like 4 steps.
Yeah.
And, you know, they go into detail about each of the 4 steps, but it's widen your options, reality test your assumptions, attain distance before deciding, and prepare to be wrong. So,
that sounds very similar.
Yeah, and so I think like Mishlei is doing like the middle 2 things, which is it's reality testing your assumptions in that you're really analyzing what the phenomenon is, as opposed to just going with whatever your immediate assessment is.
Yeah.
And you're attaining distance before you make decisions.
Right.
Because you're looking at it on like a framework perspective.
Yeah. All right. Good. I'm gonna have to, when I read the book, then I'll have to. Maybe that'd be a good opportunity to reevaluate the Ken method and just like compare and contrast and refine. And a cool thing happened just now. I just bought the book. It's the first time I ever made a purchase during Sheer. But like, why would I wait if I could just buy it now? So yeah. I wonder if that's a first ever.
Like that anyone's ever done.
Yeah, it's possible, right?
I
Like we're within a minute of someone suggesting a book in the middle of a shear, buying it.
In the middle of teaching.
In the middle of teaching shear, yeah, exactly. Yeah, people come. Yeah, yeah,
Kind decisive.
yeah, yeah. Okay.
That was very decisive.
Yes, it was. Yeah. Because like, see, that's an example also of like, what would I be waiting for? Like, if it was gonna be like a whole distraction, then. You know, but like it was just that's the buy now option. You know, yeah. Okay.
They're gonna tell you to return it. Read this book.
Yeah. We saw what happened. Yeah. Okay. So should we do questions on the puzzle now? Yeah. All right. I mean, it is not a very like wordy puzzle. So I guess what, if anything, is the difference between Zikisi and Paharti? And I say if anything because like this could just be a synonym. What was that?
I'm all in things.
Oh yes, Malvin, yeah.
What is hate?
What is hate in this context? Because hate, and again, usually hate means unintentional sin. You know, like
Mhm.
if it is daka, you know, then that might be relevant here. What is lave in this context?
Who's the audience?
Yeah.
Who's speaking?
You know, it's funny. It's a good question still, but it sounds like the audience is literally everybody, right?
Right. Yeah.
Because
Right,
who can say
who
this?
can-
Yeah.
right.
But I guess the question is, who
Like
is the person who
practically.
thinks that they can say this and needs to be told that they can't say this? You know.
Right.
So who is the audience?
I was gonna ask, what is me Omar? What is the question it's asking? Is it who
Yeah.
can say this?
Okay, right. What is the question of me, Yomar? And we really have three possibilities. We have who will say this, who can say this, and who can declare this, which is what Alter said, which is he takes it literally, like who can verbally. I mean, I don't know if he means it literally, but it does say like it does phrase it in terms of mira. So you know, so and the only reason I'm more sensitive to that possibility is, again, I don't want us to think this way right now, but if this is talking about the king,
Right.
it might be like in front of the king who can make this declaration. You know, I just want to write this down.
Well, how's that different than who can say it?
Because like
You're like saying in the like abstract, like can you really say something about yourself? Like, you know,
Mhm.
like is this really an accurate assessment?
Mhm.
And then there's like, can you say this like verbally?
Mhm.
And there the audience would be someone hearing it, as opposed to
Right.
making a self-assessment.
well, or it could
No, I
be
mean,
someone who is
could be.
going to be saying it in front of someone who will hear it.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, like when someone says like who can say, you know?
Yeah. Meaning if it's telling you don't think that you can do, you know, be purified or whatever, like that's different than saying don't like yes. But
I know. I was waiting till Isaac was done to even look at you.
right.
Movie reference. But then I couldn't. Sorry. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Like it could be saying don't think you can be purified. That's like one thing that's like saying you can't say this, meaning you can't like make this assessment. And one thing is the other is saying don't think that you can say this out loud.
Yeah. The movie references from Wes Anderson's Moonrise Kingdom when a dog dies and the owner was asked, was he a good dog? And the kid's like, who can say? And in the context of the movie, it was very unexpected and funny. Okay, because like what dog owner would say that? Who can say? You know? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that it? What's the what is the what's the yeah the and I think here what is the scenario and the practical applications kind of have to be asked together.
Yeah.
What is the scenario and the practical application?
Is it possible to read it as like Omar, like actually a genuine question, like who can say it, and like there is someone who can say it?
Yes, it could be like a tell me if this is gonna make sense. Like Asia's Kyle Miyamsa, like who can find an Asia's Kyle? It doesn't mean no one can find an Asia's Kyle.
Yeah.
It just means it's very, very hard, and it is, you know, just but it's expressing like how hard it is. Yeah, that deserves to be its own question. Is it saying that nobody can say this, or merely that it's a rarity?
Or what if it's a quote from the king?
I was thinking,
Saying it's this whole thing.
I was thinking, what if this is a reflection of
You think all
I'm missing this. Say it
Oh,
again.
I'm saying like what if the king is like declaring like
Oh, the
you
meaning.
can say that they're
Okay, yeah, right. Okay, so hold on a second. So I'll just add on that. Alternatively, I don't know why I said it in a weird way.
Auburn.
Yeah. who is saying this?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, Joe.
And in the context of it's like a situation, and like who would be able to say this in a given situation?
Yeah.
What would the alternative be? Like, what are they saying instead of saying this?
Okay. Yes, that's also good. So I'm gonna phrase it broadly and then give this as a possibility. So what is the opposite? Okay, so
That's kind of, I started with that and then
Yeah.
arrived at the way.
yeah, so one way is to do it your way, which is to say, what is a person saying instead of this? Or the other way is why would a person think that he can say this?
Right.
Yeah. Or what kind of a person, you know? Yeah.
I have a thought, but only for double questions.
I think we have no more questions.
Yeah.
Let us actually think now for a little while first. Okay. I do have one more question. What about tshuva? Right? Isn't the zikita libi? I don't really know, but taharti mechatasi, I've become pure from my faith. I mean, that's literally the whole purpose of tshuva. You know, how does tshuva fit in?
Purity implies that there's no, that you have like no faith.
V'knei Hashem titharu. That's what Yom Kippur is for.
Grammatical question.
And also all the mishalim about the if you're what was that? No.
On Yom Kippur that we become pure.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a specific quote. I know it in English. If your garments are like scarlet, then like God will cleanse them to be like white wool, you know, like all that, like Tara, or like, you know, all the Rambam Perik Zion of Hilchos Tshuva. Like yesterday, this guy was like degraded and despicable and stuff like that, and like now he's, you know, yeah, your bonus turns into Glios. Prove on your deathbed.
Yeah, for the Russian.
People Gomorrah.
Yeah, for Russia Gomorrah, like if Russia says like you know, marry me, I'm not supposed to have a tonic.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Marry me.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There's a Arrested Development reference. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Anyway, well, that was
Yeah.
I realized.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So is this past tense or future tense?
Past tense.
Okay. So Zaki Philippi is also past tense, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Just,
Yeah.
When we're doing the
Yeah.
future translations, I was.
Yeah. Yeah. Yomar is future tense, and then Zikis and Taharti
Yeah.
are past tense.
Okay. Thinking that?
A little bit more.
Let's do I mean, yeah.
Okay. Yes.
So I'm going to tie this into what we were to our initial methodological tangent. That it's saying I think it's saying that, like this type of claim, which is a claim that people sometimes make, is not a believable one.
Mhm.
Which is the person says, like internally, I'm like a pure person,
Mhm.
but like, you know, maybe my actions are the best, but like, you know, internally I'm good.
Mhm.
And saying if like if that's true, it won't just be in your lave. It'll manifest externally.
Mhm.
So
So
if it did, the person wouldn't need to say, you know, I'm a good person. You know,
who are you trying to convince?
yeah,
Yeah. Right.
yeah, like it's the person saying it because they're doing actions that are not the best in some way, and so,
Mhm.
and so that it has that reflects their internal state. In terms of the question of tshuva, the person theoretically could do tshuva, and but then you don't need to say it because it'll be manifest in your actions, like going forward.
So you are, just to make sure I'm understanding you correctly. So you are taking like the Yomar as verbalizing,
Yes.
right? So you're saying who can who will say this
Well, people
or
who can like
Honestly, say
who can
this.
honestly say
honestly
it.
say this, yeah. Honestly or accurately or both.
Wait, what can you
Both.
accurately say? I thought you were just saying he wouldn't because he wouldn't need to. Like it's manifested as action.
Yeah, that's why I'm trying to
Yeah.
see if those are two interpretations or one, like if that's a unified thing. Because you were on the one hand you were saying that it would naturally, or are you saying both? Meaning it would naturally manifest itself. No. One idea you're saying is it would naturally manifest itself, so there'd be no need to say it.
Yeah.
And if a person feels the need to say it, then it must mean that there's some doubt created that like is coming about from the manifestation of the stuff that they haven't purified. That was a really awkward sentence, but and then the other thing you're saying is who is capable of actually doing this, and
No,
not capable.
not saying.
You're not
I'm
saying, okay.
I'm saying
Oh, okay.
yeah, but
Just
you have a thought?
no.
Okay.
No, I have to. I smelled apples. I'm like, why am I smelling apples? And I was like, oh, because I brought apples. Giant lefties, and I can't eat apples. So if anyone wants apples, I suddenly smelled them. Yeah.
So if a person is saying this, that means I'm saying that means that their actions aren't reflecting it.
Mhm.
So the person is going to be saying it for one of two reasons.
Mhm.
Either they want to convince other people that they're a good person, even though they know they're not,
Mhm.
or they think they're a good person, but really they aren't, and they're they've convinced themselves they are, but it's not. But it's evident that they aren't by the fact that it's not manifesting itself.
So I kind of question the premise here, because aren't there scenarios where like a person will not be known, like let's say like you were brought before a king and like the king, you're just some peasant and like the king doesn't know who you are, and like you have to convince yourself that you're not guilty of a crime, you know?
Yeah, well, I think then you'd point to your actions. You'd say, look, these are like, look at my good actions. You wouldn't say, I'm a good person internally.
So you're taking this as both internal. I see.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And Tarki main fantasy is also here.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering about also, because but you could say Taharti Mechatasi still is referring to the lathe, in the sense that like I have become pure from my hate. In other words, hate makes you tame in this mashal, meaning not tame, but like like dirty or whatever, and I've gotten rid of the traces of my my faith. Yeah, something about it is bothering me that I don't know what it is. I think maybe it's too specific in the scenario, and it might come down to that in terms of the way, but right now it's bothering me, not because of the idea, just because it sounds too like, if you took this project on its own, it sounds very universal, but I get, I mean, again, you are taking you're sticking to the Yomar part, and I see that's where it's coming from. I'm not challenging any step.
Yeah.
I'm saying intuitively I'm inclined to make it more universal. Yeah.
I don't think this isn't universal.
But you are talking about a person trying to convince somebody of something,
Yeah.
which to me is more specific than who in abstract is capable of saying this about themselves, which is much more universal.
Well,
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I guess that's what.
That's why I was saying that you're going with the Yomar part.
Yeah. Well, I guess what I was saying about a person like trying like actually believing it, I think maybe it also addresses that, which is that it's, I guess that maybe it's also saying if this is, I guess, a slightly different interpretation, which is that if a person finds themselves wanting to finds themselves feeling like they need to express that, then that's really a reflection on their character. Like it's not like you're going to be like a I guess it's like a way of looking at yourself also.
Yeah. So I think it needs to be unified a little bit more. Also, I think that's the other thing that's bothering me. Yeah, we're going to stop in a little while, but yeah.
Yeah. So the thing that you were saying about Shuva, specifically on like the second half, I think if we're going with the idea that this is like this is expressing the idea of like don't fall into this pitfall of like thinking that like you can be absolutely perfect like and I'm not sure if it's saying like who can like verbally say this, who can like abstractly like make a self-assessment of this of like being, but like if we're saying that the who, whatever the who can do what is going on, like this idea of like being absolutely perfect. So then like and the pasuk here is saying in the past tense, like of like, you know, who could say that they purified their sins, meaning so it's not saying that like you can't purify your sins. Like,
Yeah.
of course you can, but like, you know, don't don't think that now you're never gonna sin again in the future or anything. Like who can be like absolutely perfect in the sense like it's all of your life, it's a constant.
Yeah. See, that's the type of universality that I get from the thrust of the pasuk, that like that the absolute certainty with which a person can say, I have completely gotten rid of the thing that caused me, or like the effects of the fate, or like the thing that caused me to sin. And maybe that's the two categories. Zikiti Levi means the cause, and Targum Fantasy is the effect on you.
Right.
You can't say that. Like God can say that, you know, and it is possible that you can get rid of it, but you cannot be sure that you have, like, you really have that much self-knowledge that you can say that, like, you've completely rooted out all of the internal, like, things that cause you to sin, that you've gotten rid of all. Yeah, for the future also, you know, like only God can say that, you know, and that's really what gets you also, is if you convince yourself that you have completely gotten rid of this, that lets your guard down, and that's what lets it, you know, the very fact that you say that shows that you're not ready for it.
Right. And it's not saying that you can't, like, you can do complete tshuva for a sin.
Yeah.
But it would be a mistake to think that because you did complete tshuva for a sin, like now that area is never going to affect you again in your life.
Yeah. And side point is, I think I was always under the impression that that's why you have that halacha of the time that you did tshuva on last Yom Kippur, you also say vidui on every Yom Kippur. You know, why would you have to do that if we hold that you completely got rid of it and erased it? You know, but it's like, I think it's like to guard against that, but I haven't gone through that again in a while. Yeah. All right. Let's put it on pause now, and then plan tomorrow to come back. And I don't know if you had other ideas and stuff, and then we'll see. I don't know how the meforshim are going to go. I think we have to start on the meforshim from yesterday, and then maybe do yesterday, and then today, and then the ones to take it together. So we'll see what happens over today and tomorrow. I feel like it's going to be over today and tomorrow. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
Tomorrow night, please?
Sorry. Yes. Tomorrow and the next day. Yes. Tomorrow is not today. I'm just